The only little glutton in the sky descended to earth, only to discover that it truly conforms to the heavenly ways Father's claim of power and affection. However, he will soon be labeled as colluding with the enemy and betraying the country and exiled, and then the whole family will die. Dad, someone is setting up a secret chamber in the royal mansion to put dragon robes and rebellion letters, trying to kill our whole family. This minister turned out to be the unjust seed of the wife who cheated on her father and raised a son for him. Your Majesty Uncle, your evil spirit of indiscriminate killing is about to come to you. Your country's luck will be ruined by you, and there are still many in your harem. Listening to Jiajia's voice, everyone woke up ministers and the emperor. Princess Jiajia, come to the palace and sit in our mansion. Jiajia held the bottle in one hand and grabbed the evil soul to make little black sugar. As she ate, she found that everything had changed. I have only met my uncle and aunt a few times, and they are very kind and enthusiastic towards her. They all put money and delicious food in her hands. Father Tiandao's task is too simple, isn't it? Chapter 1. Little Gluttony descends to earth. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Wife, take a look at our daughter, how lovely she is. And Wang sat by the bed and glanced at his wife, who still had a weak expression on her face due to childbirth. He touched the delicate and lovely little ball in her swaddling clothes, and his gaze increased with a hint of joy. Upon hearing this sentence, the gluttonous baby opened his eyes in confusion. Seeing his daughter's watery and spiritual big eyes, and Wang was overjoyed. My precious daughter naturally needs to be held in her palm like a beautiful jade. I have decided, nicknamed Yuyu, nicknamed Meiyu, and named Song Meiyu. Xiao Taotai was foolish when he heard this name. Jade. Depression. She is the only little glutton in the world, she doesn't want jade. Immediately, his mouth deflated, tears quickly filled his eyes, and he burst into tears. The sound of crying echoed through the sky, bringing a new shock to their eardrums. Both expressions were stunned. At the next moment, King An looked up to the sky and smiled long. Daughter.in.law, listen to me. My daughter also likes this name very much. The little Gluttony pouted, tears in his eyes, accentuating his watery and lively demeanor. Which ear did he hear her like this name? Dad is bad, I shouldn't be jade. Both of them were stunned at the sound. The maids who serve are all outside, and there are only 2 people and 1 baby inside the house. Where is the sound coming from? Don't like it or not? Xiao Taotai shook her head hard, afraid that crying again would be understood as liking. Because I am still a baby, the curvature of my head shaking is very slight. Princess An's gaze fell on the child in her arms, her thoughts turning 1,000 times. She had just experienced childbirth and her body was a bit weak, but she still raised her hand and slapped An Wang on the face with little force. Daughter, I can't listen to this, I don't like it, she said. And Wang covered his face with a look of grievance, and he knew, but it's okay, he has come up with a bunch of good names in the past 10 months. King An waved his hand and shouted outside, Jinan, bring me the book for naming my king. In no time, Jinan ran in with a small booklet and put it in An Wang's hand. He stretched his head to see the young master's appearance. My gaze follows the red swaddle and gradually rises. Almost there, almost there. There was a hint of joy and excitement in Jinan's eyes. A slender neck with a protrusion in the middle that rolls up and down. Is the neck of the young master a bit thick, and why does that protrusion look so like an Adam's apple? Look up. A chin with green stubble. Hiss, how can the little master grow a beard? Keep your gaze up. Lips pursed into a straight line. This mouth is a bit big. A firm nose bridge. Is this nose getting oily? The hair on the nostrils has grown out but has not been cleaned. Why are these eyelids so black? The princess gave birth for 3 days and 3 nights, and the young master also stayed inside for 3 days and 3 nights, so she has dark circles under her eyes. When Jinan's eyes met a pair of deep and profound eyes, the demon's whispers also sounded in his ears. Jinan, have you seen enough? And Wang's voice was eerie. Jinan was startled and fell backwards onto the ground. And Wang slowly straightened his half-bent body and looked at Jinanleng, snorting, "Get out now." Humph, he hasn't seen enough of his precious daughter yet, and he still wants to peek. Dreaming. After Jinan went south, Prince An held the booklet in his hand and happily recited the alternative name he had thought of. Pu Yu, Bai Yu, Mou, Qing Yu, Bai Yu, Bao Yu. At the end of the reading, all the booklets were finished, and the little glutton was almost asleep. Do you have a name you like? And Wang closed his book, looking forward. Why are they all Jade? Xiao Taotai was already dizzy when he heard the last word. Cheap Dad is really amazing. He can choose so many names without repetition. Princess An also heard dozens of Jade for the first time, and she fainted. I know you like Jade, but can we be more reserved and introverted? For example, if your name is Song Jingyan, Jing means a bright future, and means peace and prosperity, can't you choose a name that sounds as good as your name? Jiajia didn't feel sleepy when he heard this. The name Song Jingyan sounds so familiar. When she was still in the temple, she read many books about the heavenly way, and there was a character named Song Jingyan in them, who was quite miserable. There is no doubt about the love between his and his consort. They became pregnant in their first year of marriage, and the child they gave birth to was wrapped up as a dead baby and carried away. It took another 10 years to conceive their second child, a baby girl named Jiajia. The two of them bestowed countless favors on Jiajia, and the full moon banquet was held in a grand and spectacular manner. However, on the day of the full moon banquet, someone accidentally broke into the backyard and slept with a maid due to being drunk. Originally, it wasn't a big deal, but someone caused trouble. In addition, the person sleeping with the maid was the Minister of War, and his wife was a female tiger. She exploded directly and hit someone on the spot. By chance, she opened the secret grid of that room, which contained a forged letter of collusion and treason. After the letter came out, the emperor was half convinced, but still imprisoned Prince An and ordered someone to investigate. A pile of clues were gradually investigated. In the end, at the Jiajia New Year banquet, a secret room was found in the room where the letters of collusion and betrayal were found. Inside the secret room was a dragon robe in the size of Song Jingyan. After that, the emperor was furious and exiled the An Wang family, all of whom died on the road. So she came to this world. Song Jingyan touched his face. His name was chosen by his mother's consort, not by him. Why don't I go and offer incense to my mother later and ask her to come up with a name for me, and tell me in a dream tonight? I burned my cherished 10,000 character record of naming the state of Song to my mother and asked her to make a good selection. Upon hearing this, Princess An's eyes rolled white and she said, I still need to trouble your mother about this matter. Do you want her to come up and beat you in the middle of the night? I have already come up with a name, which is Song Yaojia. Yao carries the meaning of jade, and Jia also carries the meaning of auspiciousness and happiness. Princess An bent down and kissed Jiajia's cheek, her eyes full of love. Jiajiashi doesn't like this name. Jiajia is raised by heaven and earth without a name. The fairy aunties and uncle in the sky call her Jiajia. The first time there was a little glutton named after oneself, no, now it should be called Jiajia. I like it, Jiajia is super invincible. Jiajia is mixed in sorrow and joy. Jiajia has a name now, Jiajia is so happy. Jiajia really wants to grow up with a name, Wu. Both of them were momentarily stunned, somewhat anxious, and listened attentively. Dad, don't look at me anymore. Hurry up and take a look at Jin Wenxuan's room. Someone is trying to create a dark grid in your room and even trying to install letters of collusion and betrayal to slander you. Wu, kiss your mother, beautiful mother. Some bad people want to target our family and send us to prison and exile in a year. Wu, we will all die on the road of exile. Jiajia regretted that she was still young, unable to speak or write, and unable to tell them about these things. She needs to work hard to live. She came down to earth with a mission on her shoulders, so she can't die. And Wang was startled when he heard this. He was so kind and friendly that someone wanted to harm him. Even if he's harmed, will he still implicate his wife and children? He is already a idle prince, isn't that group of people satisfied? Chapter 7. Second Brother's Crisis Relief. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If there is any danger in the future, they will protect you. You can freely command the servants arranged today. If such a situation occurs again during the day, you can directly call them back. The reason why King An neglected his 2 children before was because he firmly believed that he had not done anything wrong, and he had not even listed his family tree. But now, knowing that these 2 children belong to him and his wife, he naturally wants to find an opportunity for the 2 children to recognize their ancestors and return home. Yes. After the departure of Prince An, Song Yanjing and Song Yanli felt quite relaxed about surviving the disaster. Father, what does this mean? Have you realized your conscience? It reminds you of us. I estimate that the sun will come out from the west tomorrow, otherwise. Song Yanli muttered to himself. Song Yanjing covered his mouth, now it's not like before. If what they said is overheard, add fuel and vinegar to tell Father Wang. He may have guessed why the father's attitude has changed so much, probably because of his sister's voice. Otherwise, he can't think of any other reason. What's wrong with you? Song Yanjing's gaze fell on Song Yanli, who was holding onto his arm. I don't know, I should have touched something dirty and itchy. Song Yanjing rolled up his younger brother's sleeve, and his fair and tender skin had already been scratched red. Song Yanjing took out the medicine from the medicine box in the cabinet and wiped it on his arm. Brother, I'm fine, should be fine soon. Song Yanli felt that his brother had made a big deal out of a molehill. From childhood to adulthood, except for being beaten too seriously by his mother, he wouldn't have applied medicine. Song Yanjing has always felt uneasy because of her sister's voice. He felt relieved when he saw Song Yanli not grabbing his hand again after applying the medicine. He placed the medicine next to his pillow and said, if it still itches, remember to apply the medicine. After Song Yanjing left, Song Yanli closed the door and couldn't help but grab his arm, finishing all the medicine he had just applied. As he watched his arms turn redder and redder as he grabbed them, he took out a bandage and wrapped it around the itchy area, lying in bed with his eyes closed, forcing himself to sleep. The second day. Jiajia woke up and looked at the ceiling, patting her belly with a helpless sigh. Yesterday she was too full to drink goat milk, and her mother and father were too worried. Next time, she will divide the little evil soul into small pieces and eat slowly. If she is too full to eat at once, her parents will worry. But she didn't expect to discover the evil soul so quickly. It is said that Aunt Zhou brought it back from the temple. If it were really something from the temple, there would definitely be no evil spirits attached to it. Living people carry evil spirits, which can easily lead to longevity and bad luck. When living people have evil spirits around them, their yin energy will slowly invade their bodies, causing their physical fitness to deteriorate. Jiajia's thoughts were suddenly interrupted. What came in was Ruoshui, not her mother. If you give warm sheep milk to Jiajia to drink. Ah! Where is your mother? Jiajia took 2 sips but didn't drink anymore. It was said that her mother had gone to her brother's place, and she couldn't wait to let Ruoshui take her to see him before even finishing her milk. Brother, Jiajia is coming to see you guys before seeing anyone. Song Yanjing and Song Yanli heard familiar voices. As soon as I entered, I saw Huang Lao and his mother inside. How did Jiajia come? Princess An's face showed a hint of sadness as she took over and brought Jiajia over. Miss woke up and didn't see that you didn't even drink milk, so the maid brought her over. Jiajia felt a thump when she saw the situation inside the house, worried that something she was afraid of would happen, so she went to the bedside to see people. Princess An hesitated in her heart. The scene over there was a bit scary, and she didn't want her daughter to see it for fear of scaring her. Song Yanli desperately hid his hand back when Jiajia came in. Song Yanjing stood in front of Song Yanli and said, "Mother, take your sister back to drink milk first." "Right, right, right. My sister will go back first, and my brother will come find you to play later," Song Yanli shouted from behind. "Well, let's go back first. Princess An and Jiajia are about to go back." Jiajia is in a hurry. She felt the aura of an evil soul inside the room, even more vicious than the last evil soul. No wonder in the Book of Heavenly Tao, the second brother died without a cure. This vicious method, no matter how skilled the medical skills are, cannot be cured. "Don't go back, mother. I want to see my brother. I can save him. If he's late, he'll die." Jiajia opened her mouth and began to cry when she saw that she was going out. Princess An withdrew before stepping out of the door. "After a long struggle in my heart, I finally carried Jiajia to the bedside. As soon as you get closer, there is a strong smell of blood, and the quilt and bed are also stained with scattered red plums." Huang Lao had already bandaged Song Yanli's wound, but Song Yanli still couldn't help but want to scratch it. The cause of the itching has not been identified yet, but it is quite peculiar. But you have to hold back and don't try to scratch it anymore. You've run out of skin, and if you wait any longer, you'll be able to pull out all the bones. Unfortunately, you haven't felt any pain yet, just like you've been possessed by evil. I suggest taking it to Pudu Temple to see the abbot and dispel evil spirits. Huang Lao Mingxian didn't think that Jiajia, such an underage child, could understand what he was saying, and there was no hesitation when talking about it. "Can't even you do it?" Huang Lao is the senior brother of Dr. Su, the head of the Imperial Hospital. He cannot even cure him, so I'm afraid he can only seek help from the abbot of Pudu Temple. It is one thing that Princess An heard her daughter's innermost thoughts, but ultimately she did not believe her. "I can only do some medicine that can accelerate wound healing and minimize scarring. If he continues to scratch the wound, I suggest tying his hands and taking him to find the abbot." "Thank you, Mr. Huang. Could you please help me?" Huang Lao has left. Song Yanli couldn't help but want to grab his hand. "Brother, brother." Song Yanjing controlled his hand. "Brother, I'm so itchy." Song Yanli's mind is now filled with images of Jiajia saying that he will be covered in pain and die from ulceration on the bed. Why is he still poisoned even though he hasn't been touched by that assassin? He, who was still young, cried out in fear. Princess An felt extremely distressed upon seeing this and said, "I will have someone escort you to Pudu Temple now. The abbot of Pudu Temple has been out and has not returned yet, but there are other monks in the temple who will always find a way. She will also privately ask people to find the abbot and ask him to come back. Mother, look at me, I can save my brother, I can save my brother." Jiajia pounced her small hand and tried to attract the attention of Princess An. Having digested that evil soul, she is no longer the same as before and can solve it. Princess An looked at Jiajia and thought of the magic in her daughter's body. She picked Jiajia back from Ruoshui's arms and said, "Do Jiajia want to see her brother?" Taking Jiajia to the bedside, she saw Jiajia stretching her hand to touch Song Yanli, so she hugged someone and approached. Xiao Pang's hand fell on Song Yanli's forehead, and Jiajia's little hand emitted a golden light that others could not see. With a seemingly light and graceful grasp, a black evil soul was caught. That evil soul is much stronger than last time, it has grown by a circle. It seems like I can eat for a long time now. Jiajia had a long memory this time. Instead of directly stuffing her mouth, she rubbed her little hand and then hid it. Princess An did not notice Jiajia's small movements, her eyes tightly fixed on Song Yanli, with tears in her eyes. "Hey, I don't seem to itch anymore, Song Yanli wept with joy. Only after itching can one know the joy of not itching. Several people coincidentally glanced at Jiajia. Princessin. Great, great. Jiajia is really the lucky star sent by heaven to save them. Song Yanli. My younger sister is too powerful. She saved him, and she is her life-saving benefactor. Who dares to bully my sister first? Song Yanjing. The hardships of the past few years must have been to make him meet this lucky sister. Jiajia smiled happily and said, brother, it's okay. When Prince An rushed over, he made a special trip to the courtyard of the two brothers. After learning about today's situation, An Wang looked at his wife and daughter, and the bright moonlight shining outside the window. He secretly made a decision in his heart. Chapter 2. Writing a divorce letter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Princess An was also shocked when she heard the words, colluding with the enemy and betraying the country, and dying on the road of exile. The two of them raised their heads together and looked at each other. Seeing each other's expressions, they knew they could hear their daughter's innermost thoughts. I wanted to listen again, but I waited for a while and didn't hear again. Ah! Hungry, she is a glutton and is starving to death. Is Jiajia hungry? Jiajia nodded. Did you hear that? Hurry up and go find the nursing mother to come and nurse. Princess An gave Prince An a look. Yes, yes, yes. An Wang understood and quickly left. After leaving, he whispered to the maids and nursing mothers at the door, after half a cup of tea, go in and breastfeed. Seeing them about to bow, he pressed his index finger to his lips and said, Shoo, be quiet. An Wang's gaze fell on Jinan beside him, and he gave him a glance to follow him. He wants to go to Jinwengshuan to see if there are really traitors trying to harm him, as his daughter said. After the time comes, the nursing mother goes in to breastfeed. Jiajia took a sip and vomited, then began to cry. Don't drink this, don't drink this. She wants to eat roast chicken, roast pig and roasted whole lamb. The heavenly emperor's father, uncles, and aunts clearly said that they could eat a lot of delicious food when they descended to the mortal world. The maidservant Ruoxue felt a little flustered when she saw this. Princess, miss, she spat out her milk. Princess An said in a deep voice, go and fetch some sheep's milk. Yes. If the water takes orders, take the nurse out. I came back in no time. Warm goat milk was placed in a bottle, and seeing Jiajia obediently drinking the milk, Princess An felt relieved. Watching the little woman obediently drinking milk, Princess An looked at her with tenderness in her eyes. Hearing my daughter's voice is like a dream. The news of the daughter's inner voice about the letter of colluding with the enemy and betraying the country, and they will die on the road of exile, is too big. The husband has just gone to check it. It must not be true, it must not be true. After finishing the goat milk in the bottle, Jiajia reached out again. Ah, ah. Hungry, delicious, I still want to drink. Princess An heard her daughter's voice and said to Ruoxue, go and get another pot. If water goes and returns. Jiajia finished drinking half a bottle and reached out her little hand, ah, still want to drink, still want to drink. If the waterway says, Princess, the young master has already drunk a pot and a half, and can't drink any more. Princess An also knew this truth, Jiajia is good, you can't drink any more. Drinking more will cause your stomach to explode and you will feel uncomfortable and unable to sleep. No, no, my belly is big and won't explode. She had taken all of Grandpa Lao Jun's pills before, and after taking them for a long time, her stomach did not explode. The heavenly emperor's father said that her belly was very big and she pretended to be dissatisfied. Princess An only thought that she was young, and whenever she met someone she liked, she couldn't stop eating, not knowing how hungry she was, and didn't take it seriously. Jiajia reached out and watched as Ruoxue disappeared and never returned. Humph, bad mother. I don't like my mother anymore, I only like her when I wake up. She seems to have forgotten something. What is it? Jiajia yawned as she thought about it, and the baby's body could easily become tired when it was full. She seemed to see her cheap dad coming in a daze. As soon as Prince An came in, his face looked very unhappy, but when he saw Princess An and his daughter sleeping peacefully in swaddling clothes, his face improved for a moment. After dismissing everyone else in the room, he lay directly on Princess An, feeling extremely sad and angry. Princess An raised her hand and slapped Prince An on the head with a very light force. After taking the picture, he carefully glanced at Jiajia, who was still sleeping. "Don't wake up your daughter from crying soon." An Wang covered his head and carefully glanced at his daughter, confirming that she was still asleep. He gently carried her to the small bed next to him and then reached the bedside to hold his wife in his arms, whispering softly. "I just went to Jinwengshuan and saw Jibei inside." An Wang clenched his right fist and hammered heavily on the bed, gritting his teeth and pulling out a letter. Before opening it, she said to Princess An in advance, "Please calm down first. You have just given birth and cannot be excited." "I'm calmer than you." Princess An snatched the letter. "Extract the letter directly from inside." After reading the letter, she held it in her palm, filled with sadness and anger. She is extremely familiar with the handwriting inside, which belongs to Prince An. As my daughter said in her heart, it is a letter of colluding with the enemy and betraying the country. To be ridiculous, as the Prince of An, I didn't even know there was such a hidden grid in Jin Wenshuan's mansion. An Wang tugged at the corner of his mouth, his eyes dark and gloomy. He got married and established his own royal mansion when he was in a weak coronation. He lived in this An Wang mansion for 10 years, every blade of grass and every tree, every building, and whether there was a hidden room or not. That handwriting imitates perfectly. If it weren't for my lack of courage and heart, I would suspect it was written while I was sleepwalking. There are only 2 people who can imitate my handwriting, namely Jinan and Jibei, An Wang said with almost all his strength. Princess An knew the importance of the 2 to him, so she silently patted his shoulder as comfort. "Jibei and Jinan have been with me since I was young, but why did he betray me? His betrayal made me doubt whether Jinan would also betray me." Prince An lay in the arms of Princess An and continued in a muffled voice, "They are the only 2 people in the mansion who have grown up with me. They are not trustworthy. In this Prince An mansion, I only have you." "And Jiajia," sighed Princess An. After a while, Princess An slapped him directly on the head and threatened, "Once you're done stirring up emotions, get up. You have a daughter, think about how to survive. If you dare to exile me, I'll take Jiajia Xiufu back to his mother's house." An Wang was afraid and hugged the person, saying, "No, daughter.in.law, don't abandon me. I will definitely find a way to survive. If something happens, I will let you rest me as soon as possible." Princess An lifted his head and said, "You can hear Jiajia." Although they didn't finish speaking, both of them understood each other silently. An Wang nodded. "Although we don't know why we can hear our daughter's voice, it may be a gift from heaven. We should just let nothing happen and not let outsiders know about our daughter's uniqueness. Daughter-in-law, I know that with me, I will definitely take care of her every day." Prince An suddenly stood up and took out an ink-soaked brush and his book from the nearby table, placing them directly in front of Princess An. "Hurry up, write a letter of resignation first. If something happens to me, you can just throw it out and take Jiajia with you. Quick." An Wang was very urgent, almost taking her hand and helping her write. Until Princess An finished writing, he ran eagerly to get the seal. "Give the small seal to Princess An." While crying, she held Princess An's hand and pressed down the seal. "Woo-woo, you must hide this well, we're not really separated." An Wang looked at the bright red seal on the paper with a runny nose and tears, and his heart hurt even more. Chapter 8. Ghosts in the Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the court this morning. Your Majesty, I still feel that Prince An needs to take those 2 children to his ancestral home and adopt them under the Queen's lap, so that he can inherit the title of Prince in the future. Since knowing that Princess An gave birth to a baby girl, these courtiers have been doing it like a routine, saying it once a day. Every time someone changes, Prince An can already recite those words fluently. As for the thoughts of these people, he can also guess a bit from you. An Wang impatiently dug out his ear and sneered at Mr. Lu, who had just come to Cambodia. Even if I adopt my 2 children, I won't let them marry your 2 daughters who have been divorced and still have children. Mr. Lu, you should rest your mind. An Wang, you. Lu Darren was so angry that his face and ears turned red. Having thought of this before and being pointed out in person were 2 different things. Prince An, Lord Lu is also kind-hearted. Lord Wu was interrupted as soon as he spoke out. Mr. Wu, you too. Your wife just gave birth to your daughter, shouldn't she be in such a hurry to book a marriage for your daughter? If your wife finds out, you won't have to kneel on the washboard when you go back. Lord Wu dared not have such thoughts. He was so angry that he was about to spit out blood. I don't have such thoughts, he said. The attitude of Prince An towards others today has made the officials in the court somewhat uncomfortable. An Wang's performance in the past year has been like cotton, they turn a deaf ear to everything they say. How come they suddenly become prickly again and even eliminate all the scouts they have arranged? Prince An has been holding back his anger for the sake of accumulating good deeds for the fetus in the Queen's womb this year, but since he learned about what happened yesterday, he can no longer tolerate it. King An suddenly expressed the resentment he had collected during this period and scolded all the officials. Minister of Household, does that person in your backyard know that you often enter and exit the Nanfeng Pavilion behind your back? Do you need my king's help to bring the servants of the Nanfeng Pavilion to your mansion, or to ask for a favor in front of the imperial brother to make you the first official in history to take a male concubine? Mr. Zhou, your scandal of spoiling your concubine and destroying your wife for disrespect has not escalated yet. Do you need my help to promote and publicize it? Mr. Wang, you. Ministers. This crazy dog has taken the wrong medicine, right? It bites anyone it sees. Feeling happy, An Wang's whole face was radiant. Immediately turning around, he bowed to the emperor and said, "Brother, I think the adults are right. My Jiajia has just been born and I still lack 2 brothers who can love Jiajia like my younger brother. Therefore, my younger brother plans to adopt the 2 children to the Queen's lap." The emperor's eyes darkened upon hearing these words, and he said, "Has Prince An considered it carefully?" "My younger brother has already considered it carefully." The emperor snorted lightly. "Prince An will consider carefully and go ahead with it. If there is nothing to do, leave the court and Prince An will stay. After all officials have retired." The emperor looked coldly at his younger brother in front of him. Prince An hesitated a bit. After all, after that day, the emperor inexplicably distanced himself from him and had not left him alone for a long time. Prince An looked eagerly at the emperor, thinking that he wanted to admit his mistake and reconcile with him, and even a hint of expectation rose in his heart. "Are you sure you want to adopt those 2 concubines to Princess An?" "Yes, I have already considered it carefully, I." Prince An was interrupted by the emperor's reprimand before he could finish speaking. "Song Jingyan, did your mind get stuck in the door? 2 outer chambers that can't be brought up to the table, you actually want to adopt them to Qingning's lap. Do you deserve Qingning? I really didn't expect you to be such a person. It's okay to let Qingning down and make her sad. You still plan to humiliate her like this?" An Wang was dumbfounded by the scolding. "No," Qingning also agreed, "and how dare you still force Qingning to agree? It's a pity Qingning likes you. If you don't marry, you will treat her like this." "No, I didn't." "Song Jingyan, you have turned into a coward now. You don't even want to admit what you have done. Alright, don't say anything. Since you have already made up your mind, let me mistake you. You go, I don't want to see you again." "Brother, I can explain." "I won't listen, Shadow Guard, please ask Prince An to leave." The emperor decisively turned around. Shadow Guard stood in front of Prince N and forcefully invited someone. Anwang was invited out in frustration, and before leaving, he heard what the emperor had said. The empress mother has returned and wants to see Qingming and the newborn child. Tomorrow, let them go to the palace to meet the empress mother. King An told the queen about this matter, and the next day Queen An brought Jiajia into the palace. Jiajia entered the palace for the first time and was curious about everything inside. I have seen my mother. Qingming is here. Hurry up, come to the side of the AI family. Princess An brought Jiajia to the Empress Dowager's side, and the Empress Dowager was very fond of the small ball carved with powder and jade in her arms. Jiajia looked at the elegant Empress Dowager and smiled sweetly. The Empress Dowager is so beautiful and fragrant. This is sandalwood, isn't it? Where did the sound come from? The Empress Dowager looked around the palace. Judging from the appearance of the Empress Dowager, she is a person with strong blessings, and Jiajia likes her. What is the child's name? After returning to her mother, she took the big name Song Yaojia and the milk name Jiajia. Princess An replied with a smile. Jiajia. The Empress Dowager's finger was caught by Jiajia. This name is good, and it doesn't sound like it was chosen by that kid Jing'an. Hee, Jiajia also thinks the name her mother chose sounds good. Jiajia, I am your grandmother. I will be called grandmother in the future. Grandmother, I like my grandmother. The Empress Dowager confirmed that the voice she heard was from her granddaughter. She glanced at Princess An and thought only she could hear it, and suddenly became even more proud. Not being close to one's ancestors and grandchildren is better than being close to one's ancestors and grandchildren. Does Jiajia like her grandmother's ring? The Empress Dowager looked at the little doll holding onto the ring in her hand. This ring is broken, grandmother cannot wear it. Wearing too much will cause head pain and make it difficult to sleep. The Empress Dowager's heart skipped a beat. She had a headache and couldn't sleep recently. She thought it was because of her recent restlessness that she had developed an old habit. This ring was found by Wen Dong from the warehouse a while ago, and she thought it looked good and liked it, so she put it on. Now upon closer reflection, it is true that after putting on this ring, I have been experiencing headaches and unable to sleep. The Empress Dowager thought it through and watched as the ring changed from liking to disgust. This ring is too ugly, even my grandmother doesn't wear it, and Jiajia doesn't want it either. The Empress Dowager took off the ring and set it aside, intending to go to ask the national teacher about the ring later. If there is really a problem with the ring, then Jiajia is her lucky star. Wen Chun, bring over the things prepared by our palace. Wen Chun brought in a group of palace maids, each holding a tray. Jiajia's eyes widened and she stared intently as the palace maid lifted the red cloth covering it. The first plate is filled with a golden milk bottle set with rubies. The second plate contained a small garment made of expensive woven brocade and gold thread. The third plate is filled with a beautiful gold lock. Jiajia's favorite thing is the golden lock and milk bottle, she can't put it down. Princess An chatted with Jiajia and the Empress Dowager for a while before leaving. On the way, we passed by the Imperial Garden. It is early summer, and the Imperial Garden is full of colorful flowers, with butterflies lingering in the garden. Flowers, many flowers. Princess An thought that Jiajia liked beautiful flowers. I didn't expect. Jiajia looked at the butterfly eating the flowers very well and wanted to give it a try. I don't know which one tastes better, the flowers in the human world or the flowers in the heavenly realm. I heard that your Majesty will pass by the Imperial Garden today. We need to wait over there as soon as possible. As the voice drew closer, a woman dressed in fancy clothes and two maids hurriedly headed towards the Imperial Garden. Both sides collided face to face. The palace princess looked at the person in front of her and felt familiar, but couldn't figure out who it was. She asked the palace maid beside her, is this a newcomer to the palace or a senior? I don't know either. If there is a child, it should be the emperor's consort. But I haven't heard of anyone giving birth to a child in the harem recently. The two of them muttered for a while without knowing who the person across from them was. Jiajia actually knows who the two people across from her are. The two people across from each other are ghosts. Chapter 3. Jiajia is starving to death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although I have stamped it, please don't take it seriously. If you leave me, I will kneel in front of my father.in.law and mother.in.law's door for 7 and 40.9 days, crying for you to take the female husband away. Princess An knew the importance of stamping this chapter and also knew that it was a certificate for Prince An to protect their mother and daughter. Okay, I know. As long as you don't have any problems, I won't leave you. An Wang neatly folded the divorce certificate and skillfully took out a box, which was painted with black wood paint and adorned with beautiful gold and silver patterns painted with golden powder. There was also a delicate and small lock on top. Princess An took out the key and opened the box. She put the divorce certificate inside, sobbed and closed the box, locked it, and turned her head. Hide the key, don't let me see it, I'm afraid I'll tear the divorce certificate in my sleepwalk, she said, and Wang wiped his tears and nose. Ning ning, Princess An looked at her dirty and wet shoulder, and slapped him in the face with disgust. It's so dirty, wipe it off quickly. She also had a handkerchief on her hand. Okay, wipe. With the repeated guarantees from Princess An, Prince An finally felt at ease. Jiajia woke up 4 times midway, each time drinking a pot and a half of sheep's milk before falling asleep again. If Shui watches the young lady wake up and cries out hungry, he can't help but worry, Princess, will the young lady eat too much this day? I drank milk 6 times in less than a day, a pot and a half at a time, and woke up in the middle of the night saying I was hungry. Princess An looked at the child in her arms who had just finished drinking milk and woke up wanting to drink milk the previous hour. Ah! Mother, hungry, drink, want to drink. Princess An looked at her daughter's watery and sparkling eyes and couldn't resist, but she also knew that the baby had a small appetite and didn't eat much, afraid that her daughter would have a swollen stomach. Her hand was hooked by Jiajia, a truly boneless little hand, warm and soft, making her heart a mess. She was about to agree. But she remained true to her original intention. The next second, she immediately held her heart in her arms. No, my daughter smiled at me. After being conflicted, Princess An said, I can only drink half a pot more. I can't drink more. You've already drunk 9 pots today. A small amount of multiple meals is not just a large amount of multiple meals. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw the disappointed and gloomy eyes of her precious daughter. She opened her eyes and couldn't bear to look. She said to Tiandao, go and fetch half a pot of sheep's milk. After Jiajia finished drinking that half pot, she wanted to drink again. Princess An rubbed her stomach and said, I'll drink it when I wake up. Jiajia, be good. My mother is bad. Jiajia doesn't like her anymore. How can she wake up when she's hungry? Princess An didn't take her words to heart, but gently lulled her to sleep. Under the gentle voice of Princess An, Jiajia fell asleep on an empty stomach. Little glutton, unable to eat enough, hungry belly, sleeping, unable to wake up, weak. Until the next day, I hit 3 poles. Jiajia hasn't woken up yet, and both Prince An and Princess An are extremely worried. No matter how they tried to wake up, the two of them called the local doctor to come and see. Huang Lao, what's wrong with Jiajia? Huang Lao's face became heavy after probing his pulse, and both of them felt a thump in their hearts. Huang Lao, Jiajia is okay, right? Princess An leaned precariously against Prince An. Her beautiful eyes trembled slightly, with a faint hint of shattered light. In 10 years, she had 2 children, one was a stillborn child, and the other was finally born. She only had 1 day in her arms. Why did God treat her like that? Huang Lao, please double-check. No matter what method you use, you must find a way to wake Jiajia up. This king is just such a daughter, you must find a way to save her. As long as it can be cured, I am willing to do everything in my power. An Wang's hand was tightly held by An Wang Fei, and the pain of directly pinching his nails into his hand was not as great as his daughter's potentially dangerous heartache. Their hands are now tightly clasped together, waiting for Huang Lao's treatment. Huang Lao looked at them with a strange expression and said, "What are you talking about? Miss is fine. It's you, the dignified princein and princessin, who refuse to even give a few bites of food to a baby. Do you still deserve to be parents?" Huang read a lot, and the two only heard one meaning. "Jiajia is okay." The two embraced and wept with joy. "Great, as long as it's okay, as long as it's okay. Huang Lao, since Jiajia is fine, why can't she wake up?" An Wang asked. Huang rolled his eyes expressionlessly, daring to say that everything he had just said was in vain. "You guys are starving, just find a way to feed her something," Huang said and left. What did Huang Laogang just say? Hungry. An Wang was shocked and furious. How do you people take care of Jiajia? You're so hungry. After he let out a fit of anger, all the maids and servants inside and outside the house were so frightened that they knelt on the ground trembling. Upon seeing this, Princess An immediately thought of the voice she had heard yesterday and grabbed Prince An, saying, "You go down first. If there is water, go to the kitchen and bring the warm sheep's milk." Yes. If water responds. After everyone goes down. "I told Jiajia not to eat so much," said Princess An with a guilty face. "Yesterday, Jiajia drank 9 pots of sheep's milk. I heard that other babies could be full by drinking only half a pot at a time. Jiajia drank 1.5 pots at a time. Last night at midnight, she became hungry again. I thought she had drunk 1.5 pots at that time, afraid she wouldn't know she was full and would feel uncomfortable drinking too much. I only gave her half a pot, but I didn't expect." Princess An covered her face and wept. "I didn't expect to almost harm her because of this. Yesterday, I heard her say she was hungry and said she couldn't sleep until she was full, but I didn't believe it. I almost killed the daughter I had finally hoped for. What the hell am I doing?" Princess An is feeling a bit overwhelmed. An Wang hugged her and patted her back. "It's okay, it's all my first time being a parent, and I don't understand many things. If she's okay, it's good. We can hear her voice and pay more attention to her emotions and thoughts than others. We will definitely do better." Under the gentle comfort of King An, Ruoshui came in with sheep's milk. Originally, the two were afraid that she would fall asleep and not be able to drink. Unexpectedly, when the bottle was placed on her lips, she opened her mouth and sucked in aimlessly. After drinking the whole bottle, Jiajia unconsciously opened her mouth. Ah! Jiajia looked at the faces of the two handsome men and beautiful women in front of her, feeling a bit confused. "That's great, you can see 2 beautiful faces as soon as you wake up." Jiajia chuckled and giggled. "It's just that I'm still so hungry. Jiajia will faint from hunger again." Prince An and Princess An were both panicked upon hearing this. Shouting out, "Ruoshui, Jinan, go and get some sheep's milk quickly. 1 pot is not enough, 100 pots are needed." Chapter 5. The Truth of That Year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiajia saw a strong sense of stillness and ghostliness on Song Yanli's face. Upon hearing these words, Song Yanli almost threw the child in his hand out. If he guessed correctly, the sound came from the small milk bag in his arms. While praising his handsomeness, he cursed him to death. Song Yanli's face instantly turned pale, and her liking for the small milk bun just now turned into disgust. Someone is expected to assassinate second brother in the next 2 days. Second brother will be poisoned and lie in bed. In the end, due to the lack of an antidote, he will rot all over the bed and die in pain. Song Yanli's face turned pale, his hands softened, and he couldn't hold Jiajia firmly. Song Yanjing quickly grabbed Jiajia and held her in her arms. He glanced at Princess An, who had a cold knife beside him, and his gaze fell on her outstretched hand. If he is held up by Princess and one step later, he and his brother will be punished for throwing their sister. Song Yanli imagined countless times how bright his future was. Even if he died, he would definitely die on the battlefield, rather than lying in bed and dying in the most ugly and painful way. Wow, the elder brother and the second brother look exactly the same. The elder brother's face is not as black as the second brother's. The elder brother is fine for the time being. Song Yanjing looked at the small milk bun in her arms. So was the voice she just made. How could he hear it? Is she a monster or is he a monster? But in a word, the heredity of my father and mother is really strong. Both brothers inherit the beauty of my father and mother. Look, these eyes are like my mother. The mouth and nose are exactly the same as my father's. When I grow up, I will definitely charm many girls. When I grow up, I will definitely grow up to be as beautiful as my mother. This statement stunned both Princess An and Song Yanjing, as well as Song Yanli. I didn't take the previous words to heart. Zhou Wanlian and Princess An have somewhat similar eyebrows and eyes, and some people used to say that their two children were similar to her. Princess An couldn't help but laugh or cry about the following sentence. Her daughter, Wei Qingning, naturally looks good when she grows up. It's all Zhou Wanlian's fault. If it weren't for Zhou Wanlian's interference, she threatened the midwife to replace her mother's two children with dead babies, and her mother wouldn't have separated from her brother. Zhou Wanlian not only deceived her father into getting pregnant, but also lied to her mother about sleeping with him. She also bullied her brother behind his back, causing him many injuries. Zhou Wanlian is the super invincible top, the worst and biggest villain. Changed children. Princess An's hand trembled violently, and a string in her brain suddenly burst. Her son. No, dead. The two children were the same. At the age of 10, a sudden mudslide hit their face, causing a huge wave in their hearts. Aunt Zhou is not their biological mother, the queen is. Woo. I don't know how to tell my mother that the two brothers are the biological sons of my mother, not the sons of Aunt Zhou. In the book, both brothers died one after another within the year of Jiajia's birth. It was not until the time of exile that Aunt Zhou revealed the truth, which led to her fainting once in prison and deteriorating health, indirectly resulting in their deaths on the way to exile. Princess An looked at the two children in front of her, her fingertips trembling violently. With strong restraint, she restrained herself from holding the two children in her arms, afraid of scaring them. Since we have all seen Jiajia, you two should go back first. Jiajia was still thinking about saving his second brother, and when she heard this, she became anxious. Mother, I want to go play with my brother. Jiajia held Song Yanjing's neck tightly and never let go. Do you want to play with your two brothers? Princess An probed. Jiajia nodded hard. Jiajia was born 10 days ago and has not left the yard yet. After thinking about it, Princess An called in Ruoshui from outside and said, Yanjing and Yanli took Jiajia for a stroll in the mansion. Ruoshui, please accompany Jiajia and protect her. After playing for a while, bring Jiajia back to drink milk. Hee, Mom is really good. After the four of them left, only Princess An and her maid Fengke remained in the room. Did the prince come back? Princess, the prince has not returned yet. Madam, I have returned. A figure rushed in from outside and rushed straight to the bedside. If Shui had good eyesight and left, he would easily close the door. And Wang had just returned from the court, but he didn't even have time to change his court uniform. Madam, do you want to miss me? And Wang instinctively looked at the crib. Do Jiajia want to miss her father? What about Jiajia? I asked Ruoshui to play with Jiajia and Jing earlier for a while. How can Jiajia play with those two wild seeds? And Wang's eyes were cold, and he had never done such a thing before, so he naturally wouldn't admit that it was his heir. What kind of wild animal? Don't shout around. Fengke, you go down first. There were only 2 people left in the room, and Princess An could no longer bear it. She hugged Prince An and began to vomit bitterness. That woman just came over with Yanjing and Yanli. Is that woman making you angry? I'll kick her out now, and I shouldn't have listened to you and brought the child and that woman in. I didn't expect that woman to start being a demon after only 7 years of peace. I will go and beat that woman out now, and throw those 2 wild seeds out together. If I have the ability, I will be impeached and executed by them tomorrow morning. Otherwise, the emperor will deprive me of my title, and I will directly enter the general's mansion to eat a soft meal. King An took it for granted and was not shy to say that he would insert himself into the door. Princess An urgently grabbed his ear and asked him to sit down. What kind of wild seed? You're still barking, that's the seed of the 2 of us. He slapped his head. When that woman came, I heard Jiajia's voice again. Jiajia said our son didn't die. It was the woman Zhou Wanlian who bribed the midwife to replace our son, causing my mother and son to be separated for 10 years. Even though those 2 children grew up under her nose, as a mother, she didn't care at all. That woman Zhou Wanlian is still bullying 2 children behind her back. Our son is all injured, it's all caused by that woman Zhou Wanlian. Princess An's heart was so painful that she almost suffocated. And Jiajia also said that Lear was about to die. She said that someone would assassinate Lear, and Lear would die in agony. Song Jing'an, you must save our Lear. Princess An lay on Prince An's shoulder, her delicate cries and the truth falling into his ears bit by bit, pounding his heart with blood. I will send a secret guard to protect Lear's yard, and I will definitely not let him have any trouble, and Wang patted his beloved wife's back. And that damn Zhou Wanlian, who dares to bribe the midwife to exchange for my son and mistreats them, I'll just use my sword to chop her down and feed her to the dog now. Angry Prince An was pulled back by Princess An and slapped him in the face. What if you kill her and the 2 children hate you? The 2 children don't know the truth. Even if you hate me, you will still hate me. And Wang said, then find that midwife. I'll dig 3 feet deep to find her. If she dies, I'll go dig her grave and ask the master to summon her soul and ask for the truth from back then. Chapter 10. Admitting mistakes and saving benefactors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. And Wang. Jiajia has learned all sorts of things. How do you know the word, little shepherd? Princess An Jiajia is right. She thought her brother could take care of Wanshi, but she didn't expect him to bully Wanshi so much. When her brother died, she would snatch Wanshi out. Empress. Jiajia's words seem very reasonable. She likes something, but she doesn't like it. She has been thinking about it for so long, Emperor. This is the first time someone has called him stupid. Unfortunately, he is still a child. Why is this child so evil? He knows everything. And what was she talking about? Isn't it Princess An who saved him? How could she be the queen? The emperor is in a hurry, waiting for Jiajia's next message. Jiajia held her golden milk bottle and drank milk gurgling, completely unaware that the atmosphere at the dinner table had changed. Everyone present is a human spirit, and one can feel that the other person's emotions are not right when their eyes meet. No one looked at her, so Jiajia took out a small black block and put it in her mouth. There were no teeth, so she could only hold it as a snack. This is the evil soul she caught last time, which she made into small black blocks the size of nails. Jiajia felt drowsy when she was full, and fell asleep while holding the bottle. The emperor waited for a long time without hearing anything further. The newly served food had already cooled down, and as soon as he looked up, he saw 3 eyes with different emotions. Several people have been friends for over 15 years, and one glance can guess what the other person is thinking. Princess An went to take a look at Jiajia and confirmed that the child was undoubtedly asleep. She began to question and completely forgot that the one standing in front of her was the current Holy One. Song Jingchen, why don't you marry Wanshi if you don't like her? Marrying her also delays her raising a servant. You are simply going too far. The Empress's hand was being pulled, feeling her friend's excitement. She tugged at her friend, hoping that she wouldn't be so excited, as it would disturb the child. Don't worry, Jiajia won't be woken up unless she gets hungry or her bottle is stolen after eating and sleeping. This is the conclusion that Princess An has observed during this period. As long as the aroma of the dishes does not wake Jiajia up, it indicates that Jiajia has eaten enough and slept soundly. The sky fell and she didn't even take away the bottle in her arms, which was serious. Wanshi, you're still looking at this scumbag. Princess An hated her friend for not being competitive. What exactly do you like about him? You're dying to marry him, competing with so many women for men and giving birth to 3 sons for him, yet you haven't warmed his cold heart. Upon hearing this, the Empress couldn't help but grip Princess An's hand tightly. She entered the palace at the age of 16 and stayed there for 10 years. In order to have children for her beloved, she also had to watch the intrigues of the palace concubines. Occasionally, she could hear the emperor summoning someone to serve in bed. At every moment, her heart would be cut open. I will doubt whether it is wrong to insist on entering the palace despite the opposition of my family. But now, she seems to have some regrets. Before the queen could speak, the emperor spoke. Wei Qingning, you figured it out. It's not that I'm going to marry, it's that she's going to the palace herself. The emperor's words directly plunged the empress into the ice cellar, her whole body icy cold. The queen's eyelashes trembled slightly, as if something had died in her heart. Speaking out, the emperor naturally felt it was inappropriate, but there is no reason to retract what the emperor said. Song Jingchen. Princess An's irritable temper was once again ignited after 10 years of gentle and healthy life. Wei Qingning, don't think I dare not punish you. The emperor's authority was revealed at this moment. The atmosphere suddenly stiffened. The name Song Jingchen sounds so familiar. Speaking of which, Song Jingchen is really stupid. He secretly ran to the border and was injured. If it weren't for the Empress's aunt saving him, he would probably have bled to death and wouldn't have become the emperor. The foolish emperor didn't cherish it and didn't even know that the Empress and auntie were the ones who saved him until he died. In the end, he caused the Empress and auntie to feel depressed and was ultimately killed by the Empress consort in the harem. He also got into a quarrel with his father because of this, and misunderstandings grew bigger and bigger. He even killed his parents, and the country was ruined. Jiajia licked the mouth of the bottle and fell asleep again in a daze. Did the queen save him? How could it be? The emperor was stunned. Ending in depression. It really seems like a choice she would make. The queen thought to herself. Border. Did you save him? Princess An thought for a long time before recalling this matter. Did you sneak to the border with your parents behind your back 14 years ago to find me? What happened during that time? The queen remained silent, and Princess An knew that this matter was true. I shouldn't have let you go back alone at that time. Where did you meet him? On your way here, in the military camp, in the small woods outside, or on your way back? I must be on my way back, so I should personally take you back. Princess An regretted more and more as she thought, I didn't expect you to have feelings for this guy alone. She said, how could such a good sisters like Song Jingchen like so many people in the harem? Could it be that he was handsome? The queen smiled silently, her smile slightly dim. She did save someone on her way back, but it wasn't at that time when she fell in love with him. Love arises from first sight and lasts for 15 years. If there is no hope, why persist? Brother, it's because you like my wife that you ignored me. And Wang's face was full of shock, but also with sadness and pain. No wonder his elder brother has been treating him with ups and downs over the years, often causing trouble and targeting him. He thought he had been caught stealing his brother's wine before, but to his surprise, it was because his brother coveted his wife. The emperor lifted his eyelids and showed a cold expression. I still like you, so I hate you because of love. King An suddenly hugged himself and shrunk to the side of the queen. Brother, as we grew up together, I didn't realize you had such a strange habit. Do you want to wait for me to grow up and take action against me? I really misread you. The emperor didn't want to harm the king, but instead looked at the empress beside him, his eyes full of complexity. Why is this happening? Is everything because he recognized the wrong person? The food cooled down, and everyone lost their appetite. They didn't ask anyone to make a new one. Prince An and Princess An left the palace with their children. Inside the Fengyi Palace. Your Majesty, the food has already cooled down this time. I have asked the palace maid to make a new one. No need. The emperor had many doubts in his heart. The daughter of the Grand Tutor's family, who has never been exposed to the sunshine and spring water since childhood, can only reach the Changguang temple far away. How could she reach the remote and dangerous border? Is that the person on that day? You. The empress's expression was indifferent and she said, is it still important whether it's true or not? She doesn't want to persist anymore. The emperor curled his fingertips and said, Empress, rest well. I'll go back and handle my official duties. The emperor's silhouette carries a hint of fleeing into despair. It should be her illusion. The queen looked at the delicious dishes on the table and said calmly, Nanqin, remove these cold dishes. Empress, should we have the kitchen make some new ones? No need, this palace has no appetite. On the carriage. Princess An remained angry in her heart, but when she calmed down, she began to worry again. Why can they also hear? The empress will definitely not do anything unfavorable to Jiajia, but your brother may not be so. Although Prince An was shocked by his brother's liking for his wife, he still trusted the emperor and said, no, he's not that kind of person. Humph, that's not the kind of person who bullies Wanshi. Prince An reluctantly held Princess An's shoulder and comforted her softly. Mother, did you go home? Jiajia, take a nap and you'll be home, Princess An nodded and coaxed. Jiajia had already slept soundly, and Princess An lifted the curtain to show Jiajia the outside. Jiajia was still young, and looking at the bustling outside the carriage, she felt curious and excited. After the carriage arrived at the palace, she felt tired. After drinking sheep's milk, I fell asleep again. Suddenly arrived at Jiajia's full moon banquet. Chapter 6. Gluttonous Grasping of Evil Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Where does my sister want to go? Song Yanjing asked Jiajia in her arms. I want to go to where my brother lives. By the way, I forgot that you still can't speak, otherwise my brother will take you around casually. This is where my brother lives in the mansion. Although Prince An and Princess An did not like these two children, they were not likely to be mistreated. They gave them the most remote small courtyard in the royal mansion, which belonged to the sparrow, although it was small and had all 5 organs. You two kids have finally come back. Before Zhou Wanlian could finish speaking, she saw the red swaddling clothes in their arms and Ruoshui following them. Oh my, you brought Jiajia over as a guest and let Auntie hug you. Zhou Wanlian rushed up to grab it. Ah, no, don't hold a bad woman, help. Song Yanjing instinctively took a few steps back. Jinger, what are you doing? Mother, I'm afraid you might hurt my sister. Song Yanjing's body trembled subconsciously. How could I hurt her? Hurry up and give me your child a hug. Aunt Zhou had a fierce expression on her face, and her ghost claw was pointing towards Jiajia. Jiajia kept crying. If the water kicks Aunt Zhou away. How brave Zhou Wanlian is. She dares to make Miss cry. If Shuixin is deeply distressed, the number of times Miss Z cried at birth is rare, and it is still the first time she has cried because of an outsider. If Shuiyan harbors disgust and wants to take Jiajia away from Song Yanjing's arms, Miss, let's go. It's okay not to wait in such a polluted place. Let's go back and tell Madam to come and take care of her. I didn't expect Jiajia to hold Song Yanjing's hand tightly and never let go. If there is no way out, Song Yanjing can only continue to hold the young lady, keeping her gaze fixed on her surroundings, to prevent Zhou Wanlian from making any further moves. Mom, are you okay? Song Yanli wanted to help, but was lifted and waved away. Zhou Wanlian looked at the two children with resentment. If it weren't for them bringing this unlucky thing over, she wouldn't have been hurt. Song Yanjing naturally saw the emotions in her eyes and silently carried Jiajia inside. Jiajia, this is my room. The room is empty except for tables, chairs, beds, and bookshelves. The desk is filled with ink and books, but it's not messy. After staying for a while, I went to Song Yanli's room again. At the moment of entering the house, Jiajia quickly felt a sinister aura. Brother, take me for a walk. Jiajia pointed her hand at a certain place and said, ah. Song Yanjing took Jiajia over, and Jiajia pointed to another place. Song Yanjing then went to another place. Quickly, most of the things in the room were touched thoroughly. Upon touching a navy blue sachet, Jiajia's gaze instantly changed. Bad things are inside. She scratched into the void with her small hand. Her hand was too short to catch. Jiajia. Why are her hands so short? Jiajia wants this sachet. This sachet is your second brother's treasure. It was brought back by your aunt from the temple before, and he likes it very much. Jiajia can touch it, but your second brother probably won't give it to you. Song Yanjing held Jiajia and reached for the sachet. Jiajia grabbed a black figure from the sachet that only she could see. The black image was an unformed twisted head, and as soon as it appeared, the sharp cries and strong resentment rushed towards Jiajia. The white and tender little hands tightly bound the black figure, and with a gentle rub of both hands, the black figure turned into a small square. At the moment when the black shadow appeared, Song Yanjing only felt a sudden chill in his body, but did not find the source of the chill. The chill disappeared inexplicably, and as he lowered his head, he saw Jiajia putting her little hand into her mouth, her cheeks moving as if she was eating something. Song Yanjing took out Jiajia's drool-soaked little hand and said, Jiajia opens her mouth. Song Yanjing carefully checked and found that he didn't have any teeth, so he shouldn't be able to eat anything. He just stared at Jiajia and didn't see anything in her hand. I touched the sachet, and it wasn't damaged either. Is Jiajia hungry? Jiajia shook her head. Not hungry, Jiajia is full. On the 10th day of Xiaotaidi's birth, he finally had enough to eat. It was not easy. Song Yanjing was a bit worried. Sister Ruoshui, it seems that the young lady just grabbed something and put it in her mouth to eat. Could you please take her back to check? If Shui kept staring beside her, she would naturally find that the young lady put her hand in her mouth and didn't see what she had eaten. Okay, I'll take Miss back now. After the water took Jiajia away, Aunt Zhou rushed in. Little white-eyed wolf, if it weren't for you not letting me hold you, would I have been kicked and injured by that lowly maid? He kicked Song Yanjing down with a single kick. I'm so good to you on weekdays, I've been itching for a day without getting my skin peeled, haven't I? Auntie, don't hit your brother. Song Yanli rushed forward to plead for mercy, but was slapped in the face with a raised hand, and his whole body was whipped away. You're also a useless person. If I fall, don't you understand how to use it as a cushion for me? You're still unfilial. My mother won't even scream, and I'll beat you to death, you white-eyed wolf. You shouldn't have given birth to this white-eyed wolf. Song Yanli has done a good job of rainstorm beating and falling on his body. After waiting for a long time, I didn't wait for the pain, but instead heard a loud noise. Dare to be the king's child, Zhou Wanlian, you are simply tired of living. Prince An followed Ji Nan and Ji Bei, while Ji Bei kicked Zhou Wanlian. An Wang looked at the swollen half of Song Yanli's face and the blood on his lips, both angry and heartbroken. Ji Bei, take this woman down and beat 10 boards. Jinan will go and invite a doctor to come and show Yanjing and Yanli their injuries. Zhou Wanlian's face turned white and she was pulled down with a mournful cry. And Wang looked at the two children, and the more he looked at them, the more he felt like he and his wife. But he suppressed the longing and guilt in his heart. Leaving without leaving a word. On that day, there were many people in the yard, both inside and outside. Servants to serve, and secret guards to guard in the dark. That night, the sound of cicadas gradually rises, and the moonlight is cool. A sneaky figure stepped on the moonlight and opened the back door. Black clouds cover the moon, and a scene of knives, swords, shadows, and bloody rain unfolds in a small courtyard. Black clouds dispersed, blood dripped, and black-clothed corpses scattered everywhere. The secret guard reported, the person committed suicide and there is no evidence of identity on him. Take care of the body and clean up the traces. As for the person who opens the door, if they can't say anything useful, kill them. And Wang finished speaking sternly and walked towards the house. In the cabin, Song Yanli was holding a small sword in his hand, and Song Yanjing was right beside him. Song Yanjing remembered what Jiajia said this morning and requested to sleep in the same room as Song Yanli tonight. The killing outside ended, and their nerves remained tense. It wasn't until King and came in that their tense hearts finally relaxed. Father. Did you two get hurt? We're fine. And Wang wants to recognize the two children, but he also knows that it's not the time yet. Qingxian, Ingxian. With a soft cry, two black figures flashed towards him. Chapter 12. Spring Lantern Festival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Change clothes. Did you take the opportunity to break into the view of that room while changing clothes? Princess An seemed lost in thought. Princess An asked, what happened? Report to Princess An, this maid intentionally spilled wine on my wife's clothes. Princess An saw the watermark on the luxurious attire and said, it was indeed her fault. Princess An had not finished speaking yet. Madame Chen spoke frankly, I think this kind of clumsy and mentally ill-willed maid should be killed directly with a cane. Princess An looked at Lady Chen's obviously immature face, her eyes slightly darkened, and her gaze fell on the maid who was still kowtowing and sparing her life on the ground. It's a raw face. Someone, take Mrs. Chen down to change clothes. As for this maidservant, she's clumsy and will be punished directly. Princess An watched as the person left and smiled as she gently passed the little interlude, continuing the banquet. On the side of King An. I can't do it, Dad. This wine has a bit of a hangover. I want to go outside and take a breath. Well, don't go too far. Come on, guys, let's go and toast Prince An. The refreshing night breeze blew on his face, and Wu Yongkai felt that the chaotic thoughts caused by alcohol had become slightly clearer. After taking a few more steps, he became more and more aware of the vastness of Prince An's mansion, which made it impossible for this road enthusiast to find his way back. I found a maid to ask for directions. The strange fragrance brought by the evening breeze made him a little drunk again. What scent is on you? Master Hui, this is the scent of the fragrant sachet of the beautiful spring flowers. The maid handed the sachet to Wu Yong. Wu Yong took a strong sniff and looked at the delicate face of the maid, which was somewhat ethereal. The maid's eyes were slightly raised, her cherry lips were slightly raised, and the words she uttered seemed to be filled with heat in his ear. He followed the maid with a silly smile on his face. Hey, why hasn't Mrs. Chen come back yet? Someone has discovered something unusual. Mrs. Chen, isn't something wrong? How could it be? This is in Prince An's mansion, guarded countless times. How could Lady Chen have had an accident here? Princess An naturally discovered that the person she sent to find someone had also returned. After a few whispers, Princess An's gaze slightly changed. Finally arrived. Someone suggested going to find Lady Chen, but Princess An pretended not to let them go together. The commotion at the banquet on the other side also came back. Wu Yong's father was a warrior, straightforward, and after drinking alcohol, he became more daring. Wu Yong was also an old man, and now he's making trouble if he can't find him. Have you seen where Mrs. Chen has gone? No. Did you find out where Wu Yong went? No. Princess An is accompanied by several wives who have a good relationship with Lady Chen, while Prince An is accompanied by Lord Wu and several familiar adults. The two sides met and Prince An and Princess An met, their gaze converging and their thoughts surging. What is this, Lord? I have seen the princess, but the son of the lower official is missing, so I request the prince to take the lower official to find her. Lord Wu is already in his prime, and the scars left on his face on the battlefield, which have turned red from drinking, look somewhat terrifying. Even as he walks slightly, he can still see the inconvenience in his legs and feet. Master Wu, you're welcome. Your son disappeared from the royal palace, so we naturally need to find him and return him to you in his entirety. Facing elders who are older than her, even if her position is higher, Princess An is still very polite. Jiajia was in Ruoshue's arms, looking at the noisy scene and feeling extremely headache-stricken. It's over, it's impossible for Wu Yong to return safely. Lord Wu looked left and right, but didn't hear who was cursing him. His face turned red and he wanted to curse. Why is Wu Da's face so red? Is he sick? If he is sick, he needs to go back for treatment quickly, otherwise he will be angry to death when he finds out the truth. Lord Wu was holding his breath in his throat and almost fainted. Master Wu, are you okay? Master Wu, please feel dizzy. If you feel dizzy, you will not be able to see others plotting against your fake son. Jiajia was excited in her heart. Her simple thought was that if someone fainted, she should take someone to treat the illness as soon as possible, so that her parents wouldn't have to go to Jinwenxian and be ambushed by someone. Upon hearing this sound, Lord Wu rolled his white eyes back and took out the medicine from his chest. His trembling hands were unable to open the medicine. It was the adult next to him who helped pour out a pill and feed it to him. I'm fine, it's okay, Master Wu gritted his teeth. No, you have something to do. Go see the doctor quickly. Your son won't die. He is currently having a spring snack in Jinwenxian. Upon hearing this, Lord Wu's legs softened. What is his son doing? Who did you have a spring snack with at the Wang mansion? I heard that King An has a concubine, isn't it that he had a spring night with that concubine? It's over, the martial arts family is gone. Although other adults do not know where the voice comes from, they are also overwhelmed by the content. Where is the princess planning to take a few ladies with her? Prince An asked. Princess An's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she exclaimed in concern, Madam Chen accidentally wet her clothes at the banquet. My concubine asked someone to take her to change clothes, but she hasn't returned yet. The ladies behind also showed some concern appropriately. Which Mrs. Chen is she? It's Lady Chenju, Lord Chen. Chenju was also present at the scene and stood up upon hearing this sentence. What, my wife is also missing? Has the queen found my wife's seat? Chenju's face was full of anxiety. Don't worry, Lord Chen. My queen has already sent someone to find her. The royal mansion is only so large, so it will definitely be found soon. Lord Chenju's face, stained with grooves, had slightly cloudy eyes with a hint of tears. I believe the queen will definitely find her safely, he said. Many people have been touched by Mr. Chen's deep affection for his wife. Everyone sighed in their hearts that he was a deeply emotional person. He married a girl who was not even half his age, pretending to be affectionate over there, which disgusted me to death. Shoo, a big bad guy. All of this was not designed by you. Any liking for madam is fake. Jiajia disdainfully roast. Chenju wiped the sweat off her forehead and felt a bit panicked. What he did was seamless, how could he be discovered? Those who heard Jiajia's voice cast a lot of gaze on Chenju, unsure of the truth. Lord Wu looked at his friend next to him who had just given him medicine, unwilling to believe that his friend was a bad person. The servant who went to find someone has returned. Prince, I have found young Master Wu. Where is it? Someone saw young Master Wu walking towards Jin Wenxuan. Princess, I have found Lady Chen at Jin Wenxuan. Are both in Jinwen Pavilion. Now, the big guy seems to have guessed something. A group of people walked towards Jin Wenxuan with a loud roar. Jin Wenxian. King An asked, where is the person? The servants guarding outside seemed somewhat difficult to speak of. An Wang's gaze fixed on him, then turned to Jin Wenxuan. Jin Wenxian is not big, it only has one room, and when it quiets down, one can still hear the reddening sounds coming from inside. Several people's faces turned black in an instant. Princess uncovered her daughter's ears. How could such a filthy voice dirty her daughter's ears? Lord Wu and Chen Ju rushed in directly. Inside, there were two bodies intertwined with white flowers, swaying dragons and phoenixes on the carved bed. The smell inside was extremely strong. You unfilial son, what are you doing? Lord Wu's loud voice woke up the two people on the bed. Ah! Mrs. Chen couldn't have seen this scene, screaming that she would be constantly snatched over and wrapped up. Wu Yong was completely exposed, and Wu De was very popular. He casually took the chair next to him and hit Wu Yong. Wu Yong ran and Wu De chased after him. Prince N's hand fell on Princess N's eyes, preventing her from seeing the unpleasant scene. The ladies and officials who followed, even though they had anticipated earlier, could not help but see some scenes, one by one filled with shame and anger. Hurry up and separate those two people. If we continue, it will really cost us our lives. King An's words fell, and the servants went to separate Wu Yong from Lord Wu. Lord Wu had great power, and the servants couldn't control it. They saw the chair flying towards Wu Yong. I'll beat you to death, you scoundrel. Wu Yong was pulled and the chair tilted, hitting the wall directly. Pada. A letter fell from the dark box on the wall. What is this? Chen Ju picked up the letter. The act of dismantling carries a hint of impatience. With the gleam of a conspiracy about to succeed in his eyes. The speed of dismantling is getting faster and faster, making it more urgent and impatient. Along with the letter is a jade pendant. This jade pendant is a bit unfamiliar, he remembers it wasn't this one that was put in at the time. When he opened the letter, the pride in his eyes froze at the moment he saw the content of the letter. He looked at the 3 pieces of paper repeatedly, but did not see what he wanted to see. How could that be? He couldn't help but break through the defense. Chapter 11. Full Moon Banquet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiajia's full moon banquet was held grandly at the prince's mansion, and everyone who could be invited was invited. The Empress has arrived. When the Empress appeared at the Anwang mansion, although the people on stage were excited, they were still relatively calm. After all, the Empress and Anwang Fei were excellent friends before leaving the palace. When a eunuch appeared, it instantly caused a sensation throughout the room. As is well known, the Emperor and King An have been at odds for a long time. In the past, on King An's birthday, the Emperor would randomly send a eunuch to celebrate and give gifts. Now, even a baby full moon banquet has sent Duke Qi over. Your Highness, Your Majesty is burdened with important matters, so he sent a servant to celebrate and give gifts on his behalf. Duke Qi smiled and the dust in his hand moved slightly, as several large boxes were carried in. Thank you, Duke Qi. 2 big boxes, 1 box needs to be carried by 2 people together. This weight has made the ministers on stage begin to weigh the weight of Prince An in the Emperor's heart. Jiajia was in the arms of the Empress, watching the large boxes one by one, tears of joy streaming down her mouth. Money, a lot of money, you can buy a lot of delicious stuffed belly. Jiajia patted the belly. Princess An couldn't help but laugh and cry. The items bestowed by the emperor cannot be sold. If there is silver, it can be bought for Jiajia to eat. Mother. The two princes came to pay their respects. Aunt Lu. Has Yunqing Yunyu grown taller? Princess An touched the heads of the two children. Children of this age grow taller so quickly. Princess An became increasingly sad as she spoke, and her gaze couldn't help but shift to her two children. Jiajia knew that her mother remembered her two older brothers again. My mother doesn't cry, my mother doesn't cry, and my brother hasn't died either. When Jiajia grows up, I will arrest the bad guys and reunite my mother and brother Empress. What did Jiajia say? Qingning's two sons are still alive. Song Yunqing and Song Yunyu were confused in their hearts. Where did their voices come from? Princess An didn't cry, she was just a bit sad. But now that both children are by their side, the midwife also has news, and everything is going well. Do Yunqing and Yunyu want to hug their younger sister? Can we do it? Song Yunqing widened his eyes and looked at the pink dough ball spitting bubbles. A living sister, she still looks so well behaved and beautiful. Of course you can. Song Yunqing held the child carefully, and Song Yunyu leaned over to take a look. How soft. My sister smiled at me. Jiajia looked at her unfamiliar brother in front of her and began to feel regretful again. This older brother, who looks older than the older brother, should be brother Yunqing. The sound rang out again. Song Yunqing looked around. Poor brother Yunqing, although he is a business genius, he stubbornly wants to force himself to learn. In the end, he is designed as a thief who steals someone else's literary talent, and is ignored by the emperor. From then on, he never recovers. The empress naturally did not want her son to be in a state of decline. During that time, she had to deal with the affairs of the harem while worrying about the affairs of her mother's family. Her son had another accident, and under the triple pressure, the empress was also exhausted. Upon hearing this, Song Yunqing didn't believe it. He is clearly a literary genius, even the kind praised by his master. How could he engage in stealing other people's works, and he has no knowledge of business? Yunyu also felt that the voice was not right. Brother Yunyu is also a pitiful person. About him. Why is he pitiful? Brother Yunyu was clearly a literary genius, but unfortunately, he went to the battlefield like he had a short circuit in his mind. In the end, he was dismembered and sent back to the capital, becoming the last straw that defeated the empresses, and Yunyu is a few years younger than Yunqing. His face turned pale when he heard that the 5 horses were dismembered. He has indeed been learning martial arts and just wants to go to the battlefield when he is old. He also knows the tragic method of the 5 horses being dismembered. If he really goes to the battlefield and dies in such a terrifying way, and even harms his mother, then he shouldn't become a general. Yunyu burst into tears with a wow sound. I was startled by Jiajia. Am I so ugly that I can scare him to cry? Jiajia's mouth sank and she wanted to cry. This startled Princess An and the Empress. The female relatives who came in looked at the sound. The 4th Prince and Princess An's child have started arguing. Finally, there was an argument. Looking at the expressions on the faces of the Empress and Princess An, it seems that there has been a serious disagreement. Perhaps it is because Princess An's child is too ugly. The 4th Prince spoke up directly and was scolded by Princess An. The Empress couldn't bear to see her child being scolded, and then the two started arguing. The female relatives felt that they had guessed right and were all feeling smug. They planned to tell their husbands when they returned later. The 2 children finally quieted down. The 3 sister-in-law of Princess An came from the general's mansion. Where's the mother? Princess An asked. My mother has accidentally contracted a cold wind these days, and I'm afraid she might infect you and Jiajia, so she didn't come. Mother is fine, I have already asked the doctor to take a look. Princess An finally felt at ease and decided to wait a few days to take Jiajia back and take a look. This is our full moon gift for our little nephew. Jiajia, I am your aunt. I am your third aunt. 3 aunts hugged Jiajia one by one. Jiajia also met 3 cousins, who were happy to receive gifts and squinted their eyes. Soon, the banquet also began. The 2 sons of the empress and the 2 sons of Princessin, who were male relatives, went to the male family seat. The women's seat is presided over by Princessin. Princein and Princessin are waiting for something to happen in Jiajia's heart. I really hate it, the full moon banquet is mine. Why are they eating delicious food? I also want to eat it. Jiajia looked at the colorful and fragrant delicacies on the table and reached out several times to secretly grab some to eat. Without exception, she was discovered and carried down by Princessin. A bottle was stuck on her mouth, and Jiajia pulled it off. Instead of drinking milk, we should eat delicious food, roast chicken, roast pig and roasted whole lamb. Princessin was not deceived by her pitiful appearance. The baby has poor digestive system and cannot eat other foods. Jiajia went to see the queen. That pitiful gaze, you don't have to hear your heart's voice to understand the meaning. The queen restrained herself and turned her head not to look at him. Jiajia could only hum and ignore them. Drinking milk and evil spirits are no longer fragrant. Mrs. Zhou and Mrs. Chen are sitting together. Mrs. Chen's clothes look quite nice. Where did she buy them from? Mrs. Zhou said enthusiastically. This is specially made in Jinyafang. Mrs. Chen was impressed by Mrs. Zhou's envious gaze. Mrs. Zhou's eyes instantly showed complaints and disappointment. It's hard to grab clothes from the Jinyafang. I can't even get one this month. My luck this month is quite good, this is already the 2nd item I have snatched. Mrs. Liu, who was standing beside her, leaned over with a look full of eagerness and excitement. Wow, 2 pieces. Is there any trick to snatch so many pieces? Mrs. Chen stroked the delicate pattern on her sleeve, feeling very proud. I don't have any tricks, maybe it's because she thinks I'm younger, and dressing well would be more effective in promoting them, she said. Mrs. Chen's fair face is different from Mrs. Zhou's loose face, which has fine lines at the ends of her eyes. To put it better, it means the third party is in power, but to put it harder, it means marrying someone who is almost the same age as her grandfather. Ah, do you have long eyes? Damn it, you lowly servant. How dare you pour wine on me? Mrs. Chen slapped the servant's face with her backhand. I want someone to take off your staff and kill you. Madam, please spare your life. Madam, please spare your life. The maid kept kowtowing and begging for mercy, and the movements on this side also caught the attention of others. Jiajia was restless in the arms of Princess and, it's over, they're going to start doing bad things. My mother kicked them out and didn't let them change clothes.